Okay, well, welcome back to Black Swan Outdoors. Today we're going to do a little bit of a boil off. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we're going to give it a try. So I wanted to kind of show you guys kind of the operation of these stoves, and also kind of just see how long it's going to take to boil this water. Obviously, this is not scientific. This is not, we're not trying to be super efficient, I guess, in how we determine which stove. We're not trying to determine which stove is better. It's more of just kind of an example of operation, kind of get an idea of burn time and how much it's going to take to boil water. So I've got a little mess kit here with me, just a regular stainless steel kit. Going to fill these cups with an equal amount of water, start the fire, and then start a stopwatch and see how long it's going to take to burn. With that, let's get at it. The fuel that I'm going to use is just some wood chips that I've got left over from cutting wood, splitting and cutting wood for the wood stove inside the house. So it's fairly dry, nothing too crazy. So I just have all that off cut. For the sake of getting things started, we're just going to use tinder. Our tinder today is going to be the Funny Pages, So with the stove, all I'm going to do is just drop newspaper into each of the stoves, get the fire going. Oops, did I kill that? Oh, still going. Okay, in the previous video we did, if you didn't see it, we talked about some of the pros and cons of these stoves, and certainly one of the things is that it's going to eat up a lot of fuel. So I have to put a lot of fuel in here, essentially, to get it going without smothering it. That's what I'm trying to do. It's getting nice and hot, but I want to get this particular stove hot, and I'm going to put some bigger stuff in there because the opening to feed it is quite small, so I'm going to have to stick with some pretty small things, whereas the opening down here I can cram larger things down inside there to feed that stove. It's actually quite warm, quite hot. So keep this fire going. I think we're about ready to get the fire going. The stove on the left, I put in some larger chunks in there. Probably in hindsight could have kept a little bit smaller. It's gonna probably burn a little bit slower than this guy, but I'm already starting to, I'll get the gasification's already started. As you can see, there's absolutely no smoke with the gasifying stove. There's very, very little smoke there. At the very beginning, you saw a lot of smoke. Now we're at the point where it's nearly non-existent, which means it's starting to gasify. So we'll go ahead and pour some water. And these, let's do, we might as well do 2 cups. It's gonna take a little longer, but that's okay. All right, so now both stoves are operational. I'm gonna have to put a little bit of a wire on this stove. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. And we're gonna put this guy on here. And I'm gonna hit go. Now the wind is coming in from the opposite direction of where I'm feeding this. Otherwise, a lot of wind would be blowing in to this, and it would probably burn a little bit hotter than it is now. Just something to consider. As you can see, I've got to put a lot of fuel into this stove here to keep it hot, keep it going. And the rocket stove is doing quite well, actually. I'm not feeding that as much, but I can certainly feel the heat coming off of these stoves, both of them. Alright, so I don't know if you can tell, but the stove and the rocket stove is already starting to fisheye a little bit. The stove on the right, the gasifying stove, not quite. So it's still not burning as fast as I thought. It was a little bit hotter than it really was. So we'll just keep feeding this guy. Again, if you want to, control the stove, you control the stove by feeding it. So you can make it hotter by smaller little stuff, or not have to feed it as much, have a little bit cooler, longer boil time by feeding it bigger stuff like that. Ooh, that is hot. So we're at 2 minutes 38 seconds. I probably could have started the stopwatch as soon as I started feeding or started the fire, but that's okay. Again, we're not doing anything scientific here. I'll move the camera so you can kind of see fisheye here. And just about starting to fisheye with the gasifier. So I definitely highly recommend either one of these stoves. I think that's a fun project to work on. It's a fun thing for scouting, certainly, and I would definitely recommend trying it out. Very, very inexpensive to build. If a camping stove is out of your budget, you could certainly pick up the supplies at a local big box store, Menards or whatever, and get most of the supplies you need there, or scrounge for it, and build it with a pair of tin snips and sometimes one of the things about these stoves too is that especially the gasifier, I find that depending on how you're feeding it, it'll seem like it's dying off, but there's so much heat in there that it'll actually kind of reignite itself. So if you think that you've smothered it, be very, just wait a few seconds and it'll start back up again. You know, so if your idea of sitting around the campsite and feeding a fire is not your idea of fun, or you're on your own, or you've got to take care of kids or something while you're cooking, I could see this could be kind of a big pain in the ass. But if you don't have any other fuel source, gas available, maybe you're relying on stoves for emergency preparedness, you need to boil water for a water boil at because of a natural disaster or something happened. You go to Walmart and someone's bought out all the white gas, or you need to travel and you don't want to take gas with you, or white gas isn't available, or whatever the situation is, you can always rely on wood, So again, I'm feeding the gasifier constantly compared to the rocket stove, and it's quite intentional. I'm trying to get this to see if I can boil this as fast. And look, as you can see, we're still fish-eyed, just getting close to starting to boil there. And we got a rolling boil here at 7 minutes and 57 seconds. It was actually started boiling just a little bit before that, but yeah, about, you know, 7.5 minutes, we'll say. So you can see that anything that's burning is where there's smoke. It's not gasifying. So there is a little bit of smoke coming out of there. So if you needed to be careful about smoke and you didn't, for whatever reason, didn't want people to see you smoke, you're going to want to be very careful about how you feed your fire, and it's probably going to take you a little bit longer to boil water if you're going slower and being careful not to get any smoke. The other thing too is you'll notice that the pots are starting to get blackened around there, so there is obviously some smoke coming off. So you, as a preventative, you'll want to wash or wipe the bottoms of the stove and the sides of the stoves with camp suds or camp soap. Dawn dish soap is fine. You don't have to buy that expensive camp soap. It's this, if you buy concentrated Dawn soap, it's the same thing really. It's doesn't have the phosphates in there, which is what you want in camp soap. Might as well put that in there. One thing I'll also mention is that a lot of people focus, they're worried about boiling water for drinking. It's not the best method, and if you are boiling water, you actually don't need to boil the water. Boiling the water is kind of just a foolproof way in which you know the water is treated. Very few protozoa or any kind of bacteria, viruses are going to be able to survive above 110, 120 degrees. So if you bring that water to 120 degrees completely, that's pretty much going to kill everything. They say bring it to a rolling boil for a minute just to ensure that everything is evenly distributed in terms of heat around the stove, and it's kind of foolproof that way. So it's something easy to remember. You don't have to worry about like what degree, whatever. But certainly, if this would be fine to drink, I could drink this even if it's not boiling or boiled. I wouldn't worry about that. I could even bring a thermometer in my first aid kit and test the temperature if I wanted to be absolutely certain. But once you start seeing those fish eyes and it's kind of hot for a while, it's been heated for a while. Doesn't have to be that. What is it? 220 degrees is boiling. Correct me if I'm wrong and down below. But yeah, so as far as efficiency, if you're looking at boil time and how quickly it's going to take to boil, all I'm saying is, don't get hung up on, well, the water didn't get a rolling boil at the same time as the other stove. I'm kind of coming up to 12 minutes now on this one. This is actually kind of shocking because I have cooked in this so many other times and been able to prepare a meal and thinking that it's about the same time, and it probably is about the same time. It's just not getting to that 200 mark, that it's cooling off quick enough, maybe, that it's just not going to be competitive. But totally fish-eyed in the water down here. Still not rolling boil as I have in the other. But that insulation and that constant airflow here is just doing a great job. So now that we're gotten on to the 13-minute mark, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put down in the comments how long it took to get this thing to boil. There's no sense in you guys watching me yammer on and watching water boil. That doesn't sound like a really great video. So with that, I'll sign off on here. Again, don't take this as scientific. You know, your results are going to vary, and I'll put the results in the description. Thanks. Remember to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you have either one of these types of stoves and what your experience are with them as well. Thanks again.